Welcome back. Today we are looking at a 2006 R53 that has the fronts of subframe bushes that need doing. There's a few other little bits we're going to do while we're in there, but that's the main job for today. So I've ordered up some Polybushes and a couple of other little seals that we can do while the subframe is off to make that a little bit easier. So first of all, let's go to the car and I'll show you why these need doing. So there's a couple of things that are pretty common on these cars when it comes to MOT failure. Suspension bushes is one of them, but it's one of the most awkward jobs to do on these cars because the whole front subframe needs to come off to get to them. And they are located down the back here. But basically, if you want to check to see if your car probably needs them doing, what you need to do is grab a breaker bar, 17mm socket, and you're looking for excessive movement front to rear on here. So if I do this, I'm not applying a lot of pressure, but you can see there is a lot of movement in that wheel. Now, if you were to take this to a garage to get them done, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot of money because it's a lot of labour involved. There are tools that you can use to get that off in situ, but again, they're not particularly great either. But yeah, this movement, there indicates that these need doing. So because this car has a aero body kit on it, it's a little bit trickier to get up in the air because we need to use the jacking points to put axle stands underneath because we can't jack under the subframe to get the axle stand into position. So obviously, if you've got standard side skirts, you probably won't have this issue. But the way that I do this to prevent any damage to the side skirts is to basically use one jack first of all, underneath the jacking point, to get the car up in the air. Like so. And obviously we've already got an axle stand around that side already. And then we get another jack. This one is going to go underneath the subframe, just to get it up in the air. Underneath the car, you can see axle stands are set up under the jacking points. That will now be safe to work on underneath the car. This is quite involved, but what we're going to have to do is take off the front wheels, take off the front bumper, because we need to be able to get access to the chassis support legs down here, and there's also some subframe bolts down here as well. These bumpers just generally held in by T30 Torx here. This will be an 8 or a 10mm that goes through underneath here. And if you have a complete bumper, there may be some 10mm underneath as well. On the aero bumper, there's one in the middle. On the standard bumper, there's some Phillips on the side and a 10mm in the middle as well. But if you look under there, you'll get it. So with the 13mm crash bar bolts, there's one bolt here, rest the nuts. So let's get that undone. So we have 4 nuts and a bolt. Again, put them on a suspension top tower because they're not sided, but you won't lose them if you keep them all in the same place. Always drop one. There we go. You don't need to have a long extension bar, but you do need to have an extension bar. So it could be a short one, it will still go through. So now we're at this position. Technically, we do not need to remove any of this front clip. All we need to take out is these chassis legs down here. Now again, depending on whether your car is complete, there are two 10mm, which I will show you because this car does have them. Let me zoom you in a little bit. There is a 10mm just here. Now that is only held into that plastic front clip by a recessed threaded, basically like a rivet, but it's common for them to break when you go to undo them. So take your time with it. If you need to, use some penetrating fluid. This one's coming out quite nicely, but you can see that's what they look like. Now again, same on this side, see it's just there. Okay, so we have two bolts up here that hold that in. They should be 16mm. Let me just check. Yep, 16mm. And basically, once they've been undone, you need to slide these off, but these very rarely want to come off. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to position you here. We'll undo those two. Again, you don't need to use an impact gun, you can just use a ratchet. It's just quicker. And they should now be wobbly and loose. All I do is get a very small club hammer. And then tap them out, pop the bolts back in so you don't lose them, and again stick them in the footwell. That way you know which side is which. Now you don't have to follow what I'm saying, but hasn't done me wrong yet. And the reason why you need to take them off is because they go onto the front of the subframe. A couple of other things we need to get off is this lower dog bone engine mount, because that connects to our subframe. This power steering fan is in the way a little bit, so we're going to take that off as well. Now, the power steering fan is held in by two 13mm nuts. And there's an electrical connector just on the side here. Again, should just push and release, but they can be a bit gammy, which this one is. What you don't want to do is yank on the cable. Right, I'll just quickly grab a small screwdriver. We can leave that hanging for a sec. Let's pop that off. So there we go. And just to make sure we don't lose those two nuts, we're going to slide them back onto here. So we're just going to do them finger tight. Now, while we're also down here, what we do need to be able to do is undo this. So this is a 16mm. This is the lower dog bone engine mount. Now, I'm going to show you another connector that we can undo while we are down here on the power steering pump, because it will make our lives a little bit easier when it comes to removal. I'm using a 3/8 ratchet for this one because of space. It's difficult to get the impact gun in there with a 1/2 inch socket on it. There we go. We can use a impact wrench on this one here though. Get out of the way. This should just wiggle out with a bit of force. These are a little bit tricky just because of the shape of them, but it will come, he says. Oh, come on. Oh. There we go. Check that, make sure it's not split. This one isn't. Keep this one together, and the smaller one here, just put that back through onto that bracket on the side. The engine mount and the fan we will put in the footwell. So that has got us quite a bit of room down here now. There is another electrical connector on the power steering pump, so let me quickly show you that. Okay, so this is obviously where the fan was, and that connector up there we can get off at this point as well. So you can see from your fan position it's hiding away just up there, so I'm going to unclip that as well, and that's pretty much all the stuff we need to be doing under here for now. We'll come back down here later, but it just gives us a lot more space. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do the passenger side, because this one has an extra bit to it than the driver's side does. Once I've done this, you just replicate this on the driver's side as well. So what we need to do first of all is get this lower wishbone bolt out. It's an 18 mil. What you don't want to do is take it all the way off just yet. So just undo it, put it down a little bit, and then what we need to do is get our big hammer, and we need to shock this to shock it free from the lower ball joint. So we're going to hit it about here. Sometimes it comes off really easy, sometimes it doesn't, but that's what we need to be doing. So let me get into position, and then you'll see the effort that's involved in getting it off. There we go. And you could hear it made like a slightly different noise. Alright, so first things first, we need to get this out of here. So this is track one end. As part of your steering rack, we need to get that free. So it should be 15 mil. Yep, and using a small extension just to get us past this. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see. Past this brake shield. And that come out quite nicely. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes what you need to do is give it a bit of a whack. But this one is also knackered, so maybe a good time to pick up another one while we're in there. And also you can just about see this drop link nut here. This also needs to come undone. That is has been replaced. So there's a 15 on the other side, but this one's probably a 16 or 17. This is a 16. Sometimes with these you need to hold a spanner up in between, so I have that here, just to undo it. There we go. As always, when you undo these things and take them out, pop the nuts back on like so, so then you won't lose it. Right, excellent. Right, this is your xenon level sensor wire in here. This has been off at some point because the clip is broken on there. You can see it's missed on this side. It will still sit in, but basically you just have to push the tab. Normally there'll be one on each side, and then lift. Sometimes these will be really tough because they normally have a lot of dirt and grime built up around them where they don't really need to come off. But you can see they're quite clean inside. So the seal's doing its job. Basically just tuck that up there so you don't knock it by accident when you're coming off, and that will be your level sensor removed. That's only on the passenger side on UK cars. I imagine in the States it will be probably on the driver's side still, because this will be the driver's side in the States, but keep an eye on it. Whichever side it's on, make sure you disconnect it before removing the subframe, okay? Because otherwise if you just drop it down, you will break that, and that is a very, very tricky job to get it all back together, especially if you rip that out. These plugs generally not available to buy anywhere, unfortunately, so be really careful with it. Whilst you're also in here, this clip here for your ABS, take that off because that's connected to your subframe leg. Make sure you do that on both sides, and I think that's pretty much everything we need to do down here. So this isn't going to be the best quality, but it's probably going to give you the closest angle. So it's a 13mm that holds it onto the steering rack. Now it's not on particularly tight, but it is very tricky to get to. So the bolt itself is a weird shape as well, so basically it's the only one that will go into the steering rack, so you can't really lose it. And all we need to do now is just push that out like so, and the bolt itself I'll show you in a minute, but you'll see what I mean. It only goes in one way. Now if this doesn't just push off, which this one doesn't, best thing to do, as you can see, so this is the bolt. You can see it's not round, it's got like a bit of a oval shape with a bit of a ridge in the middle of it. We're going to get a long bar, get down the back there, get onto there, just very gently tap it off. Do the same on this side. Like so. Don't need big bangs, don't need a lot of pressure, just needs to be free, like that. So there we go. And that is now off. So if I zoom back in down there, you can see it's free. Okay, so before we start undoing any bolts, what we're going to do is support the subframe. We're going to do that with the big jack. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. You can just jack it up in the middle, but if I show you underneath the car, there's an easy way to make sure that this is in the centre. So I'm going to show you this quickly. So you see there is like a big hole like here. I normally get a block of wood, put that there and then put the jack directly over where that hole is. That's how I support the subframe. Now, there are different ways of doing it, but basically the subframe is only held in by 3 bolts at the back, 1 at the suspension bush and 1 up here through the arm. So there's not a lot really left to do to get the subframe out. But if I position you over here for a minute, you'll see what I mean when I say about supporting it. So just make sure you're in the right place. Now I just use a big block of wood on the end of a jack like that. Fairly sturdy bit of wood as well, not just a bit of pallet wood or something. Get that roughly into the centre. Like so. And it just needs to be resting just underneath it, because you're going to need to lower it down in a minute to get to the power steering pump connector. So yeah. Now one of these is particularly tricky to get to, which is the one that goes up here. So if I show you, there is a bolt just behind here, so it sits there, and to do that I use a long extension up through the side onto there, like so. This is the same on both sides, so I'll do one side, show you, and then you just replicate it. That's it. The bolt's particularly long, so just keep them roughly in the right places. The next one is that. So you undo that one, and then there are 3 in that sort of flat plate there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get all of them out, and then we will show you the dropping of the subframe itself. Our subframe is now ready to drop down, so we need to make sure that our power steering bottle, as you said earlier, is reasonably free to move. Which sort of is. Right. We need to lower it down very, very gently to begin with. You can see the whole thing is moving. Now, it's important when you are lowering it, you've got a jack to you have complete trust in. Because it is very easy to quickly undo, and then it dropped down really quick. This one is a little bit tighter than usual, so what I'm going to do to make my life a little bit easier is just remove the exhaust manifold heat shield, because it will allow me to get a little bit more space to direct that power steering bottle through. Now you can do this, it's not a problem. 2 13mm nuts, 2 13mm bolts that hold it in. They're not particularly tight. Exhaust manifold heat shield is pretty simple to get out as well. Some cars don't even have it full stop. It's been taken off in the past, never replaced. Again, fairly common. That's coming through fine. But what I want to do is show you this power steering connector. So basically you don't want to drop it all the way down, because if you do that you will rip that out. But if you can see we're probably a third of the way down, but we need to get that plug there out. Now, the battery itself at the moment is disconnected. You don't have to do this, as long as your ignition's not on, it shouldn't be powering up anyway. But it's recommended just to be on the safe side. And then we're going to get that out. Once that's out, the whole thing can drop down. So let's get on with that. That should just pull off, but you may need to use, you can use a little screwdriver or a little bar just to use the edge of that. Just be careful you don't break it on the pump itself, because if you do that, you're going to have to replace the pump, which is not a good thing to be doing if you're just expecting to be doing subframe bushes only, and pumps aren't cheap. So let me get that out and then I'll cut back in. Plug's disconnected. Just actually came off quite easy. No faffing around. Let's continue to drop. Keep an eye on everything. Make sure nothing is making any funny noises. If you have a second person, it would be good to get them to feed that power steering bottle down. But if you don't, just keep stop and start. Make sure it's on the right trajectory. And yeah, just take your time. There we go. Now, you can see why the car had to be up so high at the very beginning, because it is a big old lump, that subframe. Now, the problem you're going to have at this point, getting it out is a bit tricky if you have a bottle full of power steering fluid. So, if you have, what I would advise you to do is get a bag, stick it over the bowl, cable tie it to the reservoir, and hopefully it will keep that to a minimum. But if you don't, you may have some spillage. I'm going to have a little bit, I imagine. Try and make this as quick as possible. There we go. Actually didn't spill any. So even that little amount we took out was enough to keep it in decent nick. So here we have it. This is the front subframe, and these are the culprits that cause your wheels to keep moving backwards and forwards. So I'm gonna have a quick break, grab a coffee, grab some biscuits, and then we'll crack on, get this sorted out. Right, I thought when I was having a quick break, I thought we'd have a quick chat. This is obviously the second channel, but if you joined us for a how-to video and you weren't already aware, the main channel itself does a lot of projects with minis, R53s, R50s, R56s, a few other different cars as well, but predominantly minis at the moment because no one else really likes working on them. It'd be really appreciated if you could like and subscribe to this channel and maybe go and check out the main channel as well. Everything that I use in these videos, if it's available on Amazon, there will be a link down below, so you can go and check that out in the storefront. There is a buy me a coffee link down there as well if you want to buy me a coffee, although at the moment I'm drinking these Kenko things from Tesco, and they are pretty good. So if you haven't checked them out, go and check them out as well. But yeah, I'll leave a link to everything that's in today's video. The bushes, tools I've been using, everything like that. It's all down in that description. So please go check it out. Check out the main channel. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you want to see on the channel in the future, because we're always doing bits and pieces on there. This one's come up a few times. So basically, it's probably one of the bigger jobs you're going to do on these cars. And it feels quite daunting when you're doing them. But once you get involved, if you stop the video at certain points, then it probably will go fairly smoothly. I say that now, but obviously I've still got to take it apart, so I may regret those words. But yeah, don't forget, check it out, let me know what you think, and I'm gonna have my break and then we'll get back to it. Right, for this we need to get these two out. These are 18s. Hopefully we don't need to remove the whole arm. So we need to remove the whole arm. These are 16s, I think, but I've had issues with them before where they've been stuck in solid and they've ended up breaking my sockets. So let's give it a go. Where possible for these, try and use impact socket rated tools because they can be quite difficult. Yeah, so what we're going to have to do with these is support this, get it up in the air a little bit, heat it up from underneath. So let me quickly set you up with that and then I'll show you how we do it. Okay, so this might look a bit janky, but basically what we're trying to do is heat up the bolts from underneath, because where they've been sitting for so long, that's what's basically causing us the issue of them not breaking free. So we're going to heat them up from underneath and then we're going to try and break them off with the impact. If this doesn't work, we're going to have to get a big breaker bar and loosen it off. We've heated that back one up there already, so let's get a big bar, go backwards and forwards with it. Not completely unexpected. It's not moving at all. Yeah, that one's moving. There we go. So it's important you go backwards and forwards and not just straight in. Try not to undo it, because you don't want to snap the thread in it. Oh, it's going. It's going. Yeah. Right, that's quite loose as well, so in theory it should all now just gun out. Yeah. There we go. Careful, because the bolts might be hot. Definitely gonna be warm. And they're big old bolts, so keep them safe, keep them on one side. If they don't feel like they're coming, just keep putting more heat on until they are ready. So now this should just lift off. We're going to replace the bushes on that as well while we're here, and we can have a quick look at these and see what sort of state they are in. Right, this side was a better side out of the two of them, so it's probably going to be harder to get off than it is going to be easier. So what we need to do to begin with is you can see there isn't as much movement in this side as there was in the other one, but we need to warm up that middle bit and try and twist it off. So I'm going to heat it up with the blowtorch and try and twist that round to break it loose from there. So that took about 5-10 minutes to get that outer section off, but you're still left with this centerpiece, and the centerpiece has a steel insert in the middle of it, which is very, very difficult to get off by just using a long bar. So at the moment I've got the angle grinder. We're just going to very gently score down the back of that steel insert, not go too deep. We just literally want to break the casing on it so that we can get a screwdriver or a pry bar in and just prise it open and then push it off. So take your time, don't go too deep, and you should be fine.
I sort of felt it give. Wow. I'm not gonna lie. That's probably the hardest one I've ever had to do. Just didn't want to come off.
First of all, this is the one off the car. Now to save time, I've already got one here that I've knocked the middle out of. But basically what you need to do is get this metal collar out of here. Now to get this out, this involves a lot of banging with a chisel, trying to cave that in to break it free. Now you could just try and take this to a garage and see if they can press it out. That might be the easiest way to do it. Probably cost you 10, 15, 20 quid, but it will save you a lot of time and effort, especially if you're already getting a bit frustrated with having to get this off the car, which I can understand completely, don't get me wrong. Now what's important with these is that when you take them off the car, you mark up which direction they face, because you need to know which one is going towards the rear of the car and which one is going towards the front. So as you can see on here, I've drawn an arrow. Arrow goes to the rear. So basically that's how I've set it up. You don't need to do the same thing, as long as you know which one is which. That is all that matters. Now the bushes that I'm using, I'm not sponsored by these guys or anything like that, but they are really good. I've used them many times. Is these problem solving bushes. Now Powerflex, I believe, charge quite a lot of money for these, but these are just as good. Pretty much the same layout. They have a bigger side and a smaller side. You need to know that the bigger side goes towards the front of the car, so that's why you need to mark up the arrows on there. Otherwise you may find that you'll be driving along one day and that could slip out the center. Not only do you get those with it, you can order anti-roll bar bushes, which I have done because the ones on the car are knackered. So I bought a set. I think the set together come to like, I want to say 50 quid. May have been slightly more, but definitely wasn't Powerflex prices. Right, so with that said, what do we need to do first of all? We need to get that centerpiece out of there. Now to do that, very simply, go to the smaller side. I'll just pop something inside the top of it like so, and I just need to push it out or get a hammer and just bang it. So let me grab a hammer quickly. Right, I'm going to quickly pop that onto there. I don't need to push it through, I just need to start it. It's starting to move now already. Come on. Let's try a different way then. Right. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because if you are working from home, this makes it easier to get these in and out. Now there is some lube with it, so what we're going to do is we're going to lube up inside here, round the outside of here, and round the outside of this. Basically what that should do is help us put it all together. Now Definitely wear gloves. This stuff is a bit strange, but it definitely does help. Don't have to use it. You can, don't want to be too crude, but you can potentially just push them in with no lubrication. What I'm going to do is go around here. You only need to go around the lip and do both sides. Now, I know you're probably wondering why both sides and not just the side that you're pushing through, but it's because I want it to sit flush when it comes through the other side. I don't want any ridges on it or anything like that, because I don't want to have to do it again. It's not a nice job to do. Right. Also, save a little bit because you will need it for the wishbone, which I will show you in a minute. Right, so all of our bits there are lubed up. I'm going to just grab a new set of gloves. So it's all sticky hands. Now there are a few ways to do this. If you've got press, just push them in. If you've got vice, like I have, I'm going to show you the way that I do it. It is not the best way to do it. The best way to do it would be with just the press, but we are making do with what we have. So, remembering that this is towards the rear of the car, and remembering that the bigger side needs to face towards the front, make sure that you double check that your lip is facing towards the front. Right, so I thought what I'd do is stop that, zoom in a bit. Right, block of wood. Small bit needs to go towards the back. So, put that in like so. Remembering that our insert is lubed up, and what we need to do is make sure that this block of wood, where possible, is getting as much of that bush covered. So you want to really be covering pretty much all of that, so that it's applying even pressure towards it. So let's bring that up a little bit. Like so. There we go. Right. That should start to press it in, all being well. Which is not. It's caving it, which we don't want to happen. There we go. So it will feel a bit unnatural to begin with. When it starts to get through and you're sort of like halfway in. So let me show you what I mean. So when you're sort of like that, so it's sort of half sticking out the back there, almost through the other side, you really want to be taking it out at that point, and probably getting a block of wood, leveling that out, so hold it in to your vise, quite solid, like so. Get your block of wood, just gently tap on the top, and it move quite easily through to the other side now. The hard bit is pretty much done. There you go. lube on that. The top section. Just going to try and make that a bit slipperier to get in. It goes in well to that point, but I think you just need a little bit more persuasion. There we go. That's in. And that's quite nicely. That's nicely in there. There we go. Right. We also have this washer here. Now, this washer goes onto the wishbone itself. So let's go back out to the car, and then I'll show you how this fits, and I'll show you how to get this back on to the car itself. On the wishbone here, there's like a weld mark around the top, and there's also a little spacer on the inside of here, which you can see. So what happens is that spacer goes that way round to cover that weld mark, so it should sit fairly flat against the wishbone itself. So if I show you down the back here, you can see there is no gap. All right. Now, at the same time, we're going to put a little bit of this lube that we got with it around here, and what this does, it makes it easier to get the new bracket suspension bush on. So there we have that one there, and obviously we have to remember our arrow. So our arrow faces towards the back of the car, like so. And we need to push that on to there, like so. Now that will go on to a point, but it will get quite tight, even with that lube. So what we need to do is just very gently grab our block of wood and just tap that on so it sits flush. So I'll do this, put on the wishbone, and then and if all is well, it should line up, which it pretty much does. So yeah. Now, like I said earlier, we bought this as a kit. So in the kit also comes with the anti-roll bar bushes. So let me quickly go and grab them. We'll swap them over, and then we'll start getting this back together. So these have definitely seen better days. If you remember when we took this off, we kept it the correct way round. So I mean, they're not terrible, but if we're here, it makes sense to do these at the same time. So plus it's red, you know, that's a big selling point, isn't it? You know, looks flash. That's a joke, by the way. You'd be surprised what some people modify their cars for, even if it is just appearance of bits you cannot see. Right, there we go. Let's get all them bits out of the way. Right, now, obviously, we need these to line up as best as possible for our bolts to go in nicely. So we're going to try and just tap these on a little bit more. They probably will go in, but
just literally broke that piece of wood, so that one's fine. This is why we don't use pallet wood for anything heavy duty. I think that's roughly in line. Let's get this back into position. Just roughly. And we need these bolts here. Our aim to begin with is just to get these tight up, not exact, but just started. And the reason for that is they need torquing down, and the torque settings on these are big because it is subframe. It is important.
And the final part is to make sure these bolts are torqued up. Now we are using the Haynes manual for this, and they recommend a setting of 165 Newton meters, which you can see we're going up to at the moment. It is particularly difficult because the subframe will try to move, so best thing to do is to stand on the back of it whilst trying to tighten these up. But obviously just make sure that you have these done up to 165 Newton meters because they do hold in the anti-roll bar and the control arms. When the subframe came out earlier, we did a quick inspection. There was some weeping coming from this power steering hose, so I've removed the existing clip and put a Jubilee clip on there instead. When we do this, we are going to have to change the power steering fluid. These cars use CHF11S, which you can find in the Amazon storefront in the description below. But now we are going to get the subframe into the car. So let's get on with that.
Let's level that out. Now it shouldn't be too bad with the power steering bottle this time because that is mostly empty. What we ideally want to do though is, that's better. There we go. So bottle needs to be kept low. Put a little bit of red rubber grease on the steering column just to make it easier to slide it back in because obviously it was a little bit stiff getting it off. So if we very gently get this into position, we need to get the power steering bottle up before we can start to raise anything, and obviously we need to get our plugs back on to our power steering pump. So let's turn this around a little bit so you can see it going in. So again, you want to be using a pretty decent jack. Just roughly get it into the right place. Doesn't have to be exact at this point in time. You need to be able to see our power steering bolt, which we can. And then if we very gently raise this up. So I am not going to show you the full refitting process on the front subframe because it is basically a reversal of the removal. Now there are a couple of points that will make your life a bit easier that I'll quickly go through now. The reason why I've got my hand down the back and the subframe is in about the halfway position is I'm trying to get the power steering fluid reservoir back into the rough place it needs to come up through that bracket. Now if you're struggling with this, the best thing you can do is get a second person to come and give you a hand, and they can do the directing while you jack up from underneath. Secondly, when the subframe is about a halfway position like you can see at the moment, it's a good opportunity to get the power steering pump connectors back into place, both the power and the signal one. And then thirdly, on the chassis legs there are a couple of metal guides that you can use to get the subframe back into the correct position. Once these are in place, if you continue to jack up the subframe to try and level it out, it will then roughly get all of your bolt holes into the right location. The bolts themselves, when you're doing them up, you can start them off, just get them started, but then to go around and torque them, they need to be torqued to 100 Newton meters to ensure that the subframe is done to manufacturer's specification. At this point, it's then just refitting the suspension and getting everything back into place, which is not too difficult to do if you watch the removal process in the first place. So because we've done a couple of other jobs as well, we're just checking all the fluids on there, but for the power steering fluid, I just thought I'd quickly show you this. The power steering fluid for the Mini is this CHF11S. It's important that you use this particular type of power steering fluid in these cars. If you use the red one, it can damage the pump. Secondly, if you have lost a lot of fluid, the best thing to do is top up the power steering fluid reservoir. Once you've got everything connected up, before you let the car down off the axle stands and the jack, start the car, go full lock side to side, so you can hear the pump whining. That basically will push any air out of the system. Do this 3 or 4 times. Go back, check the fluid, and then top it up again if necessary. Once you've done this, you can then let the car down back onto the ground.
At the end, and see how much movement we've got in the wheels. So, if we go on to this one here, same amount of pressure as before, look. Zero movement backwards and forwards. So you can see how much difference that's made. It's a lot stiffer. Now you'll get this obviously with rubber suspension bushes if you decide just to swap them like for like, but if you polybush them you don't have to do this again, and that's the main benefit to doing this. So hopefully that is the proof you need, how much difference it actually makes. Alright, there we go. So it is a massive job, but it is doable on your driveway like I've been doing. Today it's been fairly long. It is very late in the day now. Obviously we are losing light a lot quicker as we go into autumn, but it's probably 4:30, 5 at the moment, and I come out here about 9:30 in the morning. So you know, don't forget I've also done the oil cooler and the filter housing gasket and a couple of other little bits while I was in there, but it does take a while. Make sure you've got what you need there. Definitely going to need a blowtorch, probably going to need an angle grinder as well, but if you've got those 2 things and some hand tools, the rest of it is doable. You can see I've got loads of like black stuff around my head, and even my arms are like covered. So I'm going to take it out for a quick road test, make sure everything feels okay. If you've enjoyed the video and it's been helpful, don't forget to leave a comment down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and go and check out the main channel. And any tools that you need, including blowtorches and angle grinders and all that sort of stuff, will be in the Amazon storefront in the description down below. So hopefully you've all enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the next one.